Let me share the screen. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Uh, I'll be a little quicker. Am I able?
Yeah, audible.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about oral hypoglycemic agent, which, when, how, and when. As usual, few of my slides in the beginning may be little clumsy or theoretical, but after 6 slides, we'll have absolutely a practical interaction. I'll try to finish within 17, 18 minutes so that we can have some time for question answers. So this has been 2016 ADA guideline, which suggested that there are 7 things that you should consider before you start treating diabetes. Whatever is the patient that is coming to you, a new patient, a patient who has been recently diagnosed, or a patient who has been on treatment for a long time. Whenever you are trying to treat any patient of diabetes, think about disease duration, life expectancy, then important comorbidities, and so on and so forth. So, this is what ADA suggested in 2017. But by that time, we started getting important CVOTs, cardiovascular outcome trials. These are the cardiovascular outcome trials of gliptins. You don't need to go into the details. It's a very busy slide. But what suffices it to say is, at these trials, sexagliptin was practically out because it increased the amount of heart failure or hospitalization for heart failure. So two gliptins remained untouched, और जिसे हम बोलते हैं कि सीता की तरह अग्नि परीक्षा में से पास हुए. So sitagliptin and linagliptin, two gliptin came out. Tenagliptin, which is being used by very frequently, has not undergone the test. So we have got three gliptins which can be used: sitagliptin, linagliptin, and tenagliptin, one of which can be used. Then came the important trials, 4 important trials about empagliflozin, dapagliflozin, canagliflozin, and then came the renal trials of SGLT2 inhibitors. And all those trials suggested that whenever there is heart failure, whenever there is heart failure in a patient of diabetes, these drugs improve failure in addition to controlling blood sugar. Listen to the word carefully. They improve the failure in addition to controlling the blood sugars or SGLT2 inhibitors, which means a patient of diabetes with heart failure, the drug of choice automatically becomes the SGLT2 inhibitors. No other way to do it. So, ADA this year came out with the recent guidelines which suggested that whenever a patient comes to you, first thing you need to do is not HbA1c. Whenever a patient of diabetes comes to you, first thing that you need to do is not HbA1c, but first thing you need to know is whether there is established CVD, whether there is established heart failure, or whether there is established CKD. Because in all these three setups, established ACVD, established heart failure, or CKD, it is SGLT2 inhibitors which should be started. For Americans, this may be a very difficult task to do, looking into the cost of SGLT2 inhibitors. I would have probably said the same 3 months back, but not after the, the cost of SGLT2 inhibitors have gone below the total cost of glimepiride, that is sulfonylurea. So now, not Americans, but at least Indians can follow this scientific evidence-based medicine. How shall we do it? We'll see. So, when a patient of diabetes comes to you, how will you proceed? 3 slides, and then we'll go to the clinical slides. So, whenever a patient of diabetes comes to you, first thing is family history. Why family history? If there is family history of diabetes in 3 generations, it is likely to be LADA. So you can continue with OH in that case. Same way, personal history, especially comorbid conditions like high blood pressure, dyslipidemia, obesity, macrovascular or microvascular complications, whatever comorbidities are there, you have to note it down in your record. Then comes the interval history. Then comes the behavioral factors. How many times patients eat? 4 times, 2 times, or once? So his behavioral history is very important. Medications, whatever medications he is taking, and importantly, whether he has taken vaccination, especially pneumococcal vaccine and influenza vaccine, and in the days to come, COVID vaccine. Technology use. We just had a very important symposia about the technology. So we should ask the patient whether he can manage SMBP, that is blood pressure instrument at home, very important. Whether he can use glucometer at home. If not, you should ask them how to use these two instruments. To me, for a patient of diabetes coming to you, giving them knowledge about using glucometer and using blood pressure instrument is probably the most important benefit that you can do to them. And then social assessment. Physical examination important is to put your fingers on the dorsalis pedis. Very important. And then laboratory investigations that should be in the form of A1C, lipids, liver function test, renal function test, especially spot urinary albumin to creatinine ratio and serum creatinine. And from that, you have to judge EGFR. So now let's go to the important slide, and that is assessment of plan. How would you plan it out? Before that, look for hypoglycemia risk, whether the patient is on insulin, whether the patient stays alone, whether it is a long-standing diabetes, whether it is a fragile age, whether it is staying in a very small village where there is no medical facility available if the patient develops hypoglycemia, whether the patient has dementia, whether he is having polypharmacy, like ACE inhibitors, ARBs, non-selective beta blockers, NSAIDs, etc. To me, out of all the next 15 slides, this is the most important slide. Every time you see a patient of diabetes, make note that none of these factors is there. If it is there, you have to explain the risk of hypoglycemia to the patient and select the drug accordingly. So now let's move clinically. The patient of diabetes comes to you. What would be the first thing that you will do? Whether the patient has established atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Yes or no? If it is yes, you have to start with empagliflozin or liraglutide. Liraglutide being injectable is out of the way, so empagliflozin. The question comes, what is established ASCVD? So this is established ASCVD, history of angina, history of myocardial infarction, angioplasty or CABG done, high CT calcium score more than 400, positive treadmill test, stroke or PVD, peripheral vascular disease. This is established CVD. If this is all from the history only, you don't need to examine the patient. So if any of the things is there, the drug of choice would automatically be empagliflozin. No question about it. No, there is no established CVD. Then open up mobile, go to the risk calculator, and with only 4 things, start calculating his risk for ASCVD. He doesn't have ASCVD. How much he is at risk of developing ASCVD? If there is high risk, more than 10, start with DEPA or EMPA. DEPA or EMPA, DEPA more because DEPA declared studies showed more patients were involved with high risk ASCVD. So, not established ASCVD, go to the risk calculator, high risk ASCVD, start with DEPA, not available EMPA. Fortunately, we are having DEPA at a very reasonable cost in India now, so you can start with DEPA in the second category. But the answer is no. Patient is not at high risk of ASCVD. Then the third question is whether the patient has heart failure or not. Heart failure can be assessed 2 ways, clinically or with 2D echo. How can you assess it? Heart failure, if there is third eye sound, difficult to assess. Walk test. Patient walks for 6 minutes and he starts developing hypoxia or fatigability or difficulty in breathing. possibility of LV dysfunction, and then he needs to undergo investigation. Left atrial ECG or on X-ray, 2D shows decreased ejection fraction or regional wall motion abnormality, and pro-BNP is in a very high range. This is you can assess heart failure. For every time heart failure, you don't need to go to 2D echo. You can go for even clinical test. So the third thing, heart failure is present. The answer is EMPA, DEPA, or KENA, because all of you, or even REMO, all four of them have a definite effect on benefiting the heart failure and hospitalization for heart failure, and so you should start EMPA, DEPA, or KENA, one of them. Okay, there is no heart failure. Then how would you proceed? Then look for microalbumin, creatinine, and measure EGFR. If the patient has microalbumin or EGFR is going down, then the drug would be KENA or DEPA. EMPA does not have at present substantial renal benefit. Small trials are there. EMPA renal trial is coming out soon, but till then, KENA and DEPA have come out with huge data. So if EGFR or MA is positive, then KENA or DEPA. What all four things are present? The answer is EMPA. So now if you think about all your diabetic patients, most of them will fall into one of these categories, either established ASCVD or high risk ASCVD or heart failure or diabetic kidney disease. What if the patient does not have any of these things? Nothing, no established CVD, no DKD, no high risk CVD, and no heart failure. Then calculate hypoglycemic risk that we have shown to you. If hypoglycemic risk is high, patient stays as a small center, he is having retinopathy, cannot use glucometer, does not have any relatives, very late, all this patient on insulin, all matters suggest high hypoglycemic risk. In that case, gliptin would be the best choice. But there is no hypoglycemic risk. Then you can use any drug. Any drug. Cost is an issue. You can use sulfonylurea. 3 months back, this slide was right. But now the total dose of glimepiride, if you are using 6 milligram, the cost of SGLT2 inhibitors have gone down than 6 milligram of glimepiride. Therefore, this cost factor does not arise, at least in India. And the last and most important, first year of diagnosis of diabetes. That is the power play of diabetes, where you have to be very, very aggressive, try to bring down HbA1c within the first year of diagnosis. And therefore, this is one place where you should use your best batsman, and your best batsman is sulfonylurea. Nothing but sulfonylurea. So, this is how I use OHA. This is all in addition to metformin, which is always a first drug. Okay, so when choosing glucose lowering medication for type 2 diabetes or obesity, always choose the drug. Now, when you are using SGLT2 inhibitors for weight loss in a patient of diabetes, this slide is very important. If the patient does not lose more than 5% of weight, he was 100 kg, at the end of 3 months he is 97 kgs, the SGLT2 inhibitors are not serving the purpose of weight loss. In that case, you can omit SGLT2 inhibitors. There are no other indications which I have enumerated before. Metformin is always a preferred initial pharmacology. Once initiated, metformin should be continued. Early combination therapy may be started if HbA1c is more than 8. So from day 1, you can start with 2 drugs. But it is high time for all of us, whether family physician, whether diabetologist or physicians, to realize that every time starting with sulfonylurea is now out of sight and practice. Coming to Individual drugs. I'll take 5 minutes more and then we'll stop. So individual drugs, metformin, the highest dose is 2 grams. Maximum dose tolerated is 2 grams. Generally, we start with 500 milligram BD. SR preparations are the best to use. Preferably, you can give it as a single dose at bedtime if the patient is on 1 gram drug. Always tell about the ghost tablets, which may come out, the cover may come out next day in the stool, and the patient may feel that he has been cheated. Safer time to give is after meals. The drug helps more in fasting hyperglycemia and less in postprandial hyperglycemia. Caution in renal impairment, but it in renal impairment. You can start metformin and wait for 2 to 3 months, not more than that. But if HbA1c is more than 8, start with metformin, wait for a month, and then immediately switch over to 2 drugs. Ripaglinide, 0.5 milligram to 1 milligram just before food or after food. You can give ripaglinide immediately after food also. It's a very short-acting drug, works only for 2 hours, acts only leukemia. This is one drug which can be used at any level of EGFR. Apart from insulin, this is one drug which can be used at any level of EGFR. Cost is prohibitive. Pioglitazone, the strongest insulin sensitizer, even better than metformin as an insulin sensitizer, helps in controlling fasting hyperglycemia. You can use 7.5 milligram, 15 milligram, and go on to 30 milligram if there is no weight gain within 3 months. It is a very slowly acting drug, and therefore do not change. If there is no weight gain, don't change the doses before 3 months. It works very slowly. Watch for weight gain. Call back patient early if there is more than 5% weight gain within 1 month. Look for heart failure. Always tell the patient that the moment he realizes that now he is not able to walk as much as he was walking 1 month back, or he develops fatigue walking the same distance, then he should rush back because that could be the first sign of heart failure. Always check fundus because when you use pioglitazone with sulfonylurea, they can cause macular edema or macular degeneration. And of course, in postmenopausal female, atypical features, especially the eyes, without history of trauma. And remember, pioglitazone can cause anemia. Always keep an eye. If patient has anemia and is on pioglitazone, stop it. Gliptin, the best drug that is available, most best tolerated drug that is available, very safe. Efficacy is same as far as all gliptins are concerned. But as I told you, Sita, Lina, and tenaligliptin are at present considered to be safe in heart failure. More for prandial blood sugars rather than for fasting hyperglycemia. Renal impairment, all gliptins can be used in renal impairment. The only thing is required to be reduced doses. Tenaligliptin and linagliptin can be used at any level of EGFR. Remember, whenever you are using tenaligliptin, look for QT interval with 5 drugs. Tenaligliptin with 5 drugs. Don't start without QT interval. We have got so many COVID patients who died suddenly at home in UK and in Italy. And the reason that has been now found out was that they were on drugs which were prolonging QT. Tenaligliptin itself does not prolong QT, but when used with azithromycin, HCQS, anti-emetic drug that is ondansetron or antifungal drug, it prolongs QT. So be careful while using tenaligliptin with azithromycin, antifungal drug, ondansetron, and with, as I told you, with HCQS. Heart failure with sexagliptin is known, and so it's a drug should not be used. AGI, Voglibone and Carbol, both available. Many people use these drugs with lunch and dinner. Remember, these drugs have to be used every time patient takes substantial food. So always use them with breakfast, lunch and dinner rather than only with lunch and dinner. Ultra short acting works only locally to be chewed with the first bite of food. Remember, it has to be chewed. Swallowing does not work. It has to be chewed. And to be with each meal, including breakfast, this here is common. SGLT2 inhibitors establish CVD, empagliflozin, establish renal canine data. If established CVD with established renal, empagliflozin, heart failure, all of them can be selected. Heart failure in non-diabetic patient, proven heart failure in non-diabetic patient, they come out with a huge data now, even in non-diabetic patient. Canagliflozin 100 to 300 milligram once a day, Depart 10 milligram once a day, Empart 10 to 25 milligram once a day, and Remo, remember Remo, 100 milligram twice a day. Smaller doses do not work once a day, absolutely does not work. SGLT2 inhibitor, a important precaution. If the patient's HbA1c is more than 10 or his sugars have gone above 300 or he has shown weight loss or any infection, never use SGLT2 inhibitors without insulin. You can later on get insulin, but never use SGLT2 inhibitors without insulin if HbA1c is more than 10, sugars have gone above 300, weight loss or infection. Most of the patients develop GUTI, not UTI. GUTI, genital tract infection, which can be easily controlled. And the last one, GLP-1 receptor agonist. Most people would be surprised. How can you include? They are injectable. No, dulaglutide is coming soon to India. It is all oral, well tolerated, and if the cost would be fine, it's going to give ample competition to SGLT2 inhibitors. Sulfonylurea, we should not forget. The dose is glimepiride 4 milligram a day. Hypo is the only side effect of sulfonylurea, well tolerated, the best drug according to me during the first year of diagnosis. The two more slides before I finish. Other ways to look at OHA. If the patient has fasting hyperglycemia, then use bedtime sulfonylurea, metformin, pioglitazone, or basal insulin, because these are the only drugs which can affect fasting hyperglycemia, meaning thereby a patient comes to you 150 fasting and 130 postprandial with drugs, then you can use a small dose of glimepiride at bedtime with metformin, pio, or basal insulin. Reverse way, patient has a well-controlled fasting but postprandial. You can use AGI, that is Voglibose, SGLT2 inhibitors, gliptin, designer co-formulation. But to me, the best drug would be ripaglinide here if the patient can afford. Never forget to control pressure. Very, very important to control blood pressure, to start statins on all these patients and use ACE/ARB. So that's where I will stop. Thank you very much.